Hello everyone, my name is John Post. I'm an elementary art teacher, and today what I want to talk to you about is clay tools. There are a bunch of them that I make myself to use with the kids, and there are some that I've purchased from the art supply catalogs and online that are very useful, and so I want to talk about both of those types of tools with you today. Right now, let's zoom in on my work surface so that you can get a close-up look at the tools. One of my favorite tools for clay is gloves. If you do 30 sections of clay a week with kids, your hands, you're going to wash them a lot. And so by wearing some rubber gloves, it keeps your skin from drying out and cracking, especially if you live in one of the northern states where we're very dry. So I wear rubber gloves in the classroom when I'm passing things out with the kids. If I'm doing slab work, I'll use this tool right here. It's got an adjustable bar so you can adjust the thickness of the slabs. And what you do is you just take this bar, set it on the top of the clay, and pull, and it easily cuts through the clay, and you can slice up a block of clay in no time. Another tool that I love when I'm passing out clay is this tool. It's called a Cheryl heavy-duty wire tool, and I don't want to exaggerate, but it's about 1,000,000 times better than this one. And the reason I say that is I've busted so many of these over my career that I can't even count them all. And this one I've had for the last 4 years, and I haven't broken it yet. And so if I'm passing out chunks of clay to the kids, I just slice the clay into quarters like this, and then I just pull through the sides like this. And the joke in my art room is that when I give the kids their lump of clay, I tell them, here's your meatloaf, or I say, here's your lunchie, enjoy your lunchie, and then they start laughing and they go off and start making stuff. Managing clay in the art room is really important. Kids work with the clay for an hour, it sits out in the air in the room, they over-roll stuff with their hands, drying the clay and making it crack, and then they bring it all back up to you. What I do is I have the kids take their clay, throw it into the clay bag, and I have a spray bottle right next to the bag, 99-cent tool. I blast it with about 10 or 20 sprays of water, keep collecting up to the end of class, give it a little more water, then I take the bag and just twist it up like this and set it aside. Then when the next class comes in, I start over with a new bag. Go through the same process again. When they leave and the third class comes in, I go back to bag one. It's soaked up a little bit of water, it's not quite as dry, and then I just take my Cheryl heavy-duty wire tool, slice up the clay, hand it out to the kids, and we're good to go. This is a tool that I use on both clay and paint days. In my art room, we use water bowls that are actually dog bowls. And the reason that I use these is they're designed to keep a dog from knocking it around. So if it works for dogs, it's got a chance of working for kids. My homemade pin tool was born when I didn't wish to give kids this very sharp, commercially available pin tool that has a very fine needle-like point. So I wanted something that kids could use to make fine scoring lines, but wasn't so dangerous looking. So I thought about what the school had in stock, and I decided that a paper clip would work. So I just open up a paper clip like this, and then a popsicle stick to hold the paper clip, and so I let the paper clip protrude a little bit from the end of the popsicle stick, and then I just bought some electrical tape, and I like to choose bright colors so when these things hit the floor, they're easy to find, and then I just wrap the electrical tape around the popsicle stick like this, kind of the way that you see old 10-speed handlebars wrapped with the handlebar tape. And so I just keep moving down the popsicle stick till I get near the end. Then you cut the tape. And this is how I made them my first year, and then the kids would pick the tape off like kids want to do. They always want to pick at things. And so the way that I made them last longer is I take some of this Loctite epoxy glue, and it mixes in 2 parts, so you squirt the little glue out. And so I normally get all the pin tools that I want to make in one session together first. Then I get the epoxy, and then you just stir up this 2-part epoxy until it looks like both sides are well mixed together. So it only takes a little bit to do that. And don't make too big of a batch because then it'll dry on you. This stuff dries in about 5 minutes. And then I just put this right over the top of where that last little bit of electrical tape is on this pin tool and let this dry, and then this keeps the kids from unwrapping them, and so we've been using the batch that I have for a couple years now. What I like about this pin tool is that it's great for scoring small little things. So if I want to add a little sphere for this little pig's eye, I can do that rather quickly because that little tool lets me score just a tiny part of this little pig's eye and then push it on. And then this is where the pokey stick comes in handy. These are officially scratch art sticks or little skewers, and then I can make two little nostrils for the pig's nose like this. Can poke little pupils for the eyes, and so the pig starts to get a face. And what we use this tool for, which looks kind of dangerous, but it isn't if you give the kids some direction, this is called a serrated rib, and this is when they need to score large things. So I want to add a hat on here. So if I have the kids score like this, making these big scoring lines, and then score where the rest of the little Christmas hat goes, then they can put a little water on here. I have the kids use water in my art room, but another thing that you can use that really works wonderful if you teach junior high or high school is vinegar. Vinegar has a little bit of acid in it, and it eats into the clay, and it makes the clay joins wonderful, and it's not all goopy like slip. So in my own studio, I use apple cider vinegar to join clay things together. The other thing about the serrated ribs that I teach the kids is that the only way they're going to hurt themselves is if they try to cut a big chunk of clay and they push down on the edge of the rib. But I've had kindergartners use this tool with no problem. Once they know it's not a cutting tool, it's just a scoring tool. The other thing that helps with kids in clay, if I wanted to have a kid make a pig that's this large, I will make them come up and compare their sphere to a sample sphere. So I'll write S on the size of the sphere that the kids need to make, and then the kids will come up and they'll compare their sphere. Now if their sphere isn't the same size as the sample sphere, then they go back to their table, remake it, and then they come back up and then they compare it and see if they got theirs right. So it's a good way to get the kids thinking about what they need to do in terms of comparing and contrasting size, and it also helps them to work in a size where they can add all of the little details. Here are a few tips on slab rolling. The first thing that I'll have kids do when they roll slabs is do something that I call CPR, especially if they have a big chunk of it like this. What I'll have them do is just put one hand on top of the other while they're standing, not in their seat, and push down on the clay, and then flip it over like this, and do that again, and this gets it started into becoming a flat slab. The other thing that's important if you want even slabs is to put two dowels next to it and then tell the kids to roll back and forth on the clay a little bit. Then take the clay, flip it over, and the reason that they flip it over is it starts to stick to the canvas, and so after they flip it over they do some more rolling, and you'll hear this little sound. That is the clay rolling on the wooden dowel, and I tell the kids when they hear that, that's how they know they've got a nice flat slab. A tool that works fantastic if you are making things for kindergarteners is saran wrap. You take a little bit of saran wrap, just the regular stuff you buy in the grocery store, and then you can take a cookie cutter and you can cut out a shape. And you can use cookie cutters. I have a whole set of round cookie cutters for making different round shapes. And so you can cut this out just by pushing down. If you don't want to buy cookie cutters, you can make your own little cookie cutters out of just by cutting the end off of a tin can, both ends off. And the other thing that you can use is a tile tool. And what you can do with this is this has a plunger to push the clay out. But since we're using this saran wrap, we won't need it, and I'll show you that in a second. And you just push down like this, and the tile cutter that I just showed you and the cookie cutter, I use these to make test tiles of my glazes so that I can set these out on the table on glazing day. And so this is from the square tile and this is from the cookie cutters. And what the saran wrap does that is so cool is that when you pull this back and you remove the saran wrap and you pull these out, you get a nice rounded edge where you stamped out with the cookie cutter. And so then I tell the kids to just tap this little bit of remaining fuzz down, and then they have a base that they can build stuff off of. So my entire kindergarten unit is based on flat clay shapes that I'll stamp out. We do Christmas trees, we do snowmen, we do Georgia O'Keeffe flowers on this square tile, And the nice thing about this is that all kindergartners have to do is add forms on top of it, and so they're so good at pushing stuff that they don't have to worry about stacking stuff. So in kindergarten we work flat, first grade we go to 3D. Okay, for a couple minutes here we're going to talk texture. The MKM company makes a set of wood rollers, and they also make some stamps. And what you can do is you take this wood roller on a slab of clay and you just roll it like this and you get a wonderful texture. And they sell all different kinds with different patterns. So if you want a larger roller, all you do is you open this up, slide this on, and you just hold it with your hands tight, and then you just roll back like this, and you get an instant texture on your clay. And so I have a variety of different rollers that I've purchased. There's another way that you can get rollers for your clay. This tool is a wallpaper seam roller, and I found them in hardware stores, and they're just a wood dowel held in a handle. And what I did is I took my electric glue gun and I just heated it up, and then I drew some patterns onto these little dies, and so then I can just roll back like this. And so to me this looks like an ancient knot pattern, and then I have one that kind of looks like a little zigzag pattern, and all that these are is just hot glue on wallpaper seam rollers, and they're great texture tools. One of the things that you can do with something like this is you can take a wood stick. This is just called lattice wood, and I got it at Home Depot, and you can lay it on your clay like this, and then you can cut it out. Now when it comes to knives for clay, this is a fettling knife, and it's a great tool for the wheel, but I don't like it in the elementary classroom because what happens is the kids bend this tip and then it just becomes all wiggly at the front, and they pretty much ruin this tool. I use these mold cleaning spatulas, and they do the same thing as a fettling tool for working in the classroom, but they don't get bent because they're plastic. They have a little more memory, and I just run it down the side of the stick like this, and then down the side of the other stick like this, and then you can just cut this out. Now you can think of this little texture in many ways. One of the things that you could do with this is you could roll a slab bottom, and then this texture could become a coil pot. And one little trick that I like to do when I'm coiling pots is I like to have these two little pieces of clay overlap, and then I cut a diagonal here. And the reason for that is that it makes this surface right here, where you'll be scoring and joining it, a wider surface, and then you can just attach these after you score, slip, and smooth them, and then you can keep adding more and more rings of this to make a lidded jar or a tall vase. I like to use these rubber texture mats with kids and clay, and one of the main places that we use it in my art room is on an Egyptian mummy project. And so I have a set of each of these for all the tables in my room, and I write what table colors they go with on the back so that at the end of art they can have a complete set, all rubber banded together. So to use these, what the kids do is they put these face down on a slab of clay, and so they put them all right next to each other, and then they take a rolling pin and they roll these into the clay. Doesn't matter if they're not perfectly next to each other. And then what happens is they take one of these little popsicle stick pin tools and they lift these slabs out, and then they get some great texture for the surface of their mummy. And then what they do is they take a cardboard mummy template and they put that over the top of all these textures. This pin tool is great for cutting things out in clay because it follows the round edge. A knife wouldn't do this, but this little paper clip will. And so the kids then cut this out, then they cut a little exit, they take the clay away from this, and what they end up with is a decorated mummy top. We add a head, we add arms, they decorate all that, and then in my class we actually build these into time capsules, so they build a bottom and a side wall and they put personal writing in. But that's the way we use those texture mats. Another interesting tool that you can use that you don't have to buy, you're going to get these anyway when you go shopping for fruit and vegetables, is the little mesh bags that your fruits and potatoes and other things come in. And so what you do is you just take these mesh little bags and put these onto the clay, and then you can take a roller, and I have this little roller called a pony roller. I don't use this with the kids, but it's good for this sample. And what you do is you just roll this in, and the kids could use our regular rolling pins in the classroom. And then when you lift the bags off, you get these wonderful textures. And some of these textures look like fish scales. And we've used this when we've made little clay rodents, little beavers. The kids have used this for the beaver tail. And so you can experiment overlapping these over the top of each other. And we just keep a bucket of these in my art room. And so they're great for that kind of texture. I want to thank Jessica for inviting me to present at the Winter Art of Ed Conference. I enjoy the thought process I go through when I'm putting together a presentation. It was fun to rummage through my tools and in the cupboards and realize all the things that I've done with kids and clay, and it even gave me some new ideas for what I want to do for the second half of the year. If you've got comments about my presentation or have questions about tools or glazes or kilns or clay or any of those things, reach out using the Art of Ed Twitter handle, and I'll try to answer as many of your questions as I can. This is John Post signing out. Back to you, Jessica.